Hello and welcome to the Fintech Finance Vytautas, and on today's very special session we're going to be looking at crowdfunding as a model, but also where it'll be heading in the future as a new pan-European regulation comes into effect. And so joining me on today's session I have three guests who are right at the heart of this ever-changing evaluating model. We have Jovita, Aleksiune, an expert from crowdfunding regulation from the Bank of Lithuania. We also have Vytautas, Senavicius, the chairman of the board of the Lithuanian P2P Lending and Crowdfunding Association, and Gintare Baciuliene from the Invest Lithuania board. Thank you so much for joining us here today on today's session. I'm really excited to get your guys' perspective on not just crowdfunding, but also how Lithuania intersects into that, because as we know from Fintech Finance, you guys do a lot of work in the fintech scene, so I'm so fascinated. To kind of kick things off though, let's get a bit of introduction to our guest speakers today. Jovita, can I get you to introduce yourself and your role, please?
Hello, I'm very pleased to be here. So first of all, thank you for inviting at this panel. And I'm a lawyer at the Bank of Lithuania, the supervision institution in Lithuania. My sphere of my work is mostly investment services, and crowdfunding is some kind of investment, so it falls under my working sphere. Yeah. And lately crowdfunding is the main, it takes all my effort and my focus is on it because of all what is happening in this sector. Yeah. So it makes me happy because of all the things going on. So that's about it.
Brilliant. Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think we'll be coming across in today's conversation just how much people are talking about it nowadays. It seems to be, so important to a lot of organizations when it comes to investment. Now, also, Vytautas, thank you also for joining. Could you also give us a bit of background to yourself and your role too, please?
Hi. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. So I'm chairman of Crowdfunding Association Lithuania. I'm chairing the association for more than 5 years. So we had a lot of not the works but tasks and ideas how to make crowdfunding more flexible, more competitive in Lithuania, how to build the law and how to adopt it to the stakeholders in the very best way. So from that side, I am in crowdfunding sphere in Lithuania from the very beginning. From the other side, I'm also a lawyer. So I'm also practice laws in a response law firm where we also work with the crowdfunding.
Incredible. Yeah, I think that what we are going to find from this conversation, and Jovita, as you also was saying, it's just how much of a legal headache it can be. So having both of your guys' perspective on this is going to be so critical to understanding it more. And also, Gintare, thank you so much for joining us from Invest Lithuania. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and Invest Lithuania, please?
Sure. So my name is Gintare. I'm head of technology team at Invest Lithuania. Invest Lithuania is a government investment promotion agency, and we support international companies that want to explore opportunities in Lithuania to set up, scale their operations, and potentially serve all of the EU from Lithuanian base. And it is really our effort to ensure that the fintech sector in Lithuania continues to grow, and that the companies that have chosen Lithuania for their operations actually continue to succeed.
That's absolutely brilliant, and it's one of those things that maybe we're going to find out more about when we discuss crowdfunding itself, is the fact that because it has that concept of being very internet driven, it can happen from anywhere, but actually there's a lot of regulation intersecting in that, and where you choose to operate from has so many benefits with negatives, and it'd be brilliant to hear your perspectives from Lithuania. So thank you very much, Gintare. Now, with that in mind then, Jovita, if I could come to you, and as a brief introduction, can you tell us a bit more about crowdfunding and why it's still in its infancy, maybe even slightly fractured? But yeah, if you could give our audience just a brief introduction to crowdfunding itself.
The crowdfunding has its own regulation here in Lithuania, while it has not any unanimous regulation in the whole EU. So it was still a very fragmented legal system for it, because some countries had their own bespoke regimes, others didn't or still don't. Lithuania, we chose to build a legal system for this sector to enable firms to work in regulated and safe environment. So we adopted the law on crowdfunding, and it was done in 2016. So it has been a while for practicing in this sphere, and we wanted this activity, this service, to be alive, and to give some trustworthiness for this sector to work, to act in this sphere. So crowdfunding service providers had clear guidance how to work, what requirements to oblige, and they managed to do this. We are very happy that it works. And however, other countries don't have, not all countries. I think that most of the countries of European Union don't have their specific bespoke regulations. And even those who have, they have different ones. So for our crowdfunding platforms, it was a little bit hard to work just in our market, but still they managed to do this.
And I think that must be almost quite frustrating for a lot of SME owners, founders, to have that fragmented regulation across Europe, where it's so easy to think that there's just one overarching regulation over everything, and to have it fractured like that must make crowdfunding a nightmare. But if we could take a step back, and Vytautas, if I could come to you and kind of ask you to explain crowdfunding a little bit more, and why Lithuania was so excited to kind of grasp it and really become quite a spearhead with the movement, please.
Yes. So I think that the idea for Lithuania, the first issue why Lithuania started to work a lot on crowdfunding and decided to create this regime was because in Lithuania the sector of financing was really very concentrated. I mean that only a few percent of all the lending would come from alternative finance. So we had only a few large banks who had most of the stake of the lending market in Lithuania, and there were a lot of different ways how you can solve it. So in Lithuania, the idea was, let's solve it through alternative finance and through creating a bespoke regime. Well, this regime in general, which in Lithuania was created from the very beginning, it had a lot of similarities with the UK regime, for instance. Why? Because UK regime was already in the UK market for quite a while. So the Lithuania didn't decide to do everything from the very beginning and to create the rules which are already applied in practice. So there are a lot of similarities between these two regimes, like in general. So what we saw that from one side it was there were some obstacles in the beginning, because within the first maybe 2 or 3 years, maybe 2 years, during the conferences in Europe, we had a lot of questions. Why you have regulated regime? Why you need it? Because let's say in other countries you don't have it, and you have huge growth of crowdfunding, or the so-called crowdfunding, let's say alternative finance. And there were a lot of questions why you in general regulate, because your market doesn't grow so fast. But after some time, when the market in Lithuania and the crowdfunding business in Lithuania adopted to the rules and got used to it, now we see that what we have not very large, but we have matured market where for our stakeholders, it would be really easy to adopt to the current upcoming European regime, because they know the rules, they know that they have to avoid the conflict of interest, they know that they have to acquaint the investors with the risks, they have to do the appropriateness tests, and etc. So they understand that from the one side, you have to lend, and it's good that you are lending for the alternative finance. But on the other side, you have to accept that the investors borrow the money or invest into equity crowdfunding. So you have to protect them on one side and inform them in according to the rules which are in the law. So maybe it's just such a short introduction about that.
No, but I think you've hit on such an important point, and it's interesting to hear that some commentators were saying, why are you over-regulating? But actually, what you've brought up is the fact, by having these regulations and instilling them early, it means that crowdfunding can be adopted much quicker than other places might have done. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Now, obviously 2020 was quite a fascinating year, quite a stressful year for a lot of businesses, small businesses, startups. I know Lithuania does a lot of work when it comes to fostering these small organizations to go on and thrive. So, Gintare, can you tell us, why is crowdfunding so important for small, medium businesses?
Yes, absolutely. I think you touched the info aspect, and even when we look at Lithuania, but I wouldn't I don't have the statistics, but across the EU, we still see that the sector is lacks access to funding and from traditional sources. And as Vytautas mentioned, it's sometimes really difficult for SMEs to lend to get money financing. Yeah. So I think from economic perspective, and also something that we see at the government level in Lithuania, there is an agreement that we have to grow this sector of alternative funding and alternative finance sources to ensure that companies have better access to finance. So it's equally important for Lithuania, but also for SMEs across all of the region, and that's why this. The growth of the sector is really important for our government.
Yeah, it really, from what I've heard from all three of you so far, it seems like your government has done so much work already to enable this. And I think that that's going to keep coming up in this conversation, is just hearing how top down this decision is to enable crowdfunding to help businesses. Now, I'm interested, Vytautas, if I come to you again, can you tell us about the state of crowdfunding in Europe in particular? Jovita was talking about how fractured it was because of the lack of regulation, but if we look at it less of on a regulatory side and its adoption rates, can you tell us a bit more about how well crowdfunding has done over the last couple of years?
Well, in Lithuania, when we talk about the numbers, it grows about 100% every year.
Wow.
Well, what is interesting in Lithuania that, for instance, during this COVID crisis, crowdfunding really took a quite important role to also work with the governmental institutions to issue state guarantees and state loans, which really helped for the small and medium enterprises who issue for the funding, and well. From that aspect, crowdfunding became the phenomenon which is already known for the SME market, and this is very important because usually in every market the first couple of years are just understanding about the market. So now we see the huge growth. We see the huge growth of also the newcomers to Lithuania. From other countries where they see that we already have the law and it is important for them just to adopt in easier way, to start operating in easier way, to accept the European rules in better way. So I see that now we have this trend which is that crowdfunding is booming, and from governmental side, what I can see from crowdfunding players, that it is good that if you have even the idea which is not like traditional one for the crowdfunding, and if you want to introduce this idea and to discuss about this idea with the regulator or with the Ministry of Finance or with both, you can find the time slot to discuss in a couple of weeks. So we have open dialogue and open communication on how to make crowdfunding even better, even more flexible, even more modern. And you don't have to wait for, let's say, 6 months to get the first introductory meeting and to introduce your let's say new idea or more modern crowdfunding idea. So these all pillars allows us, I think, that to have this growth of crowdfunding also in the future. And I really hope and I really believe in this market.
Yeah, and it's such an exciting time. I mean, we've gone through a year of absolute stress, absolute just a lot of difficulties, and now it means, because of that regulation and because of all the work that you've put in then, it now means that in the coming years, it seems like, as you were saying, it's going to be very beneficial for a lot of businesses. Now, Jovita, if I could come to you and ask, we've seen, obviously you were mentioning how Lithuania has kind of instigated its own regulation around crowdfunding, but now we're seeing that the European Union Commission is also bringing its crowdfunding regulation 2020-1503. And I'm interested, what do you think this European regulation will mean for crowdfunding going into the future?
It will mean everything. We were waiting for this, and we are very happy that European Union took that step and created the unanimous regulation, harmonized regulation for this sphere. Because even having in mind the fact that we had our own regulation and we created, as we think, a safe environment for crowdfunding to just bloom, but it was very hard for our service providers to work just in our market. As you know, Lithuania is a little country. Nevertheless, we have everything what it takes to make things work. I think it's the advantage of little countries. They do more, they try more, and we did that together with the market. So the biggest issue was that our crowdfunding service providers, they couldn't move to another countries, to another member states. They couldn't go across border. They couldn't passport their activity there. And in order to provide services in other countries, they had to do their homework. For example, to examine the market there, the requirements in another country, and are there requirements at all? And if there are, how they should adopt those requirements. Maybe they have to get a license and so on and so on. So it was a huge burden for them, and it was a stop sign for them to just expand their activity. And this regulation on crowdfunding, European regulation, means everything. They will be free to go everywhere where they like. They already have their businesses. They are already used to regulation, to legal frames, and it will be no stress for them. And I don't think that they will have lots of challenges to go through, but they will have lots of good things. The main good thing is to reach more clients, to reach more service project owners and investors. It's a very, very good thing for the market.
Well, it's so exciting, and I know Lithuania obviously created its own version of the regulation just before, but being able to hear, and I think that the brilliant word you used is passporting, is being able to just exponentially grow that is going to be incredible. So from my perspective, I've got to ask then, is it fair to say, Gintare, that this regulation might be the same catalyst for innovation and scale of growth that PSD2 was in Europe?
Yes, so I think absolutely, just to sort of reiterate on what Jovita said. So, we have a regulator that's already been, working in very similar framework. We have market participants that have already been accustomed to working with regime that will be very similar to the new regime. And we feel that, Lithuania has a huge advantage in that the new operators that are looking to enter or expand in the European market, if they choose Lithuania as the jurisdiction for their license and passport across the EU, they will be in really a great environment to support their businesses, from the regulator who is experienced from the market that's already also, very conducive for this business model. And so there's a lot of benefits to actually growing their operations from Lithuania compared to any other base, which perhaps doesn't have that experience with the new regime.
Well, I guess, yeah, when you're creating a new business, you want to know that the regulator is going to be pretty just, fair, but also pretty knowledgeable and open for innovation. I think that's going to be critical. And along similar lines as well, then Vytautas, if I can come to you as well and ask, as we've been talking about the kind of Lithuanian regulation, but looking at scale again, is this regulation, the European one, combined with the Lithuanian one, going to be just as big as what we saw potentially with PSD2?
I'm pretty sure that it is, because I totally agree what Jovita and Gintare said, and just I want to add the one thing which is very important for the businesses. Business when the business is already moving, let's say it did the crowdfunding, let's say in another country, it wishes to start operating in Europe as fast as possible. He cannot wait, let's say, for a year or 1 year and a half until a national regime will somehow adopt regulation, then discuss whether it is implemented and interpreted in the best possible way. And what we have in Lithuania, given that our law is 95% similar to what is now in European regime, European regulation, we are in general ready to work under European regulation regime as of the 1st of December or 1st of January 2022. And this is the huge regulatory advantage, not only for our current crowdfunding stakeholders, players in Lithuania, but also for newcomers who would decide to enter into Lithuania. Because for Lithuania, you know the rules, you know that regulator knows the rules, and that you can kick off without any hesitations and burdens. So this is also a very important point, adding to what Jovita and Gintare said.
Brilliant. Now, Jovita, with that in mind, for companies that have already started crowdfunding campaigns in Lithuania, what does the European regulation mean for them? Do all the same rules apply? Are they now just going to get all the added benefits of being able to passport?
Well, I think that the main thing and the main benefit is that the green pass in the European Union. And the other thing which to my mind is great is that the legal playing field, the equal playing field for everyone. So no one will be in different position if to compare to another jurisdiction. Everyone will play under the same rules of this game. So I think that this is a huge thing for the crowdfunding market as a whole.
Yeah.
So and in having said that there will be no such things that I will move my let's say business to the country where no regulation is and less requirements or no requirements at all, and in this way I will somehow slip from the reglementation and regulation. So everywhere will be the same rules, and the market participants or prospective market participants will choose the jurisdiction which will offer best situation for them.
Yeah.
So I think that these are main points
Brilliant.
for this.
Now, if we were to, obviously over at Fintech Finance, we talk with a lot of fintechs, and Gintare, if I could come to you and ask a more of a broader top-down question about Lithuania and what Lithuania does well. We've heard obviously the strengths from Jovita and Vytautas about the regulator being so strong in Lithuania, but I think there's more to it than that, isn't there, when it comes to creating a company in Lithuania? Can you kind of, maybe for some of our fintech viewers, tell us and explain a bit more about what Lithuania can offer?
Sure. So Lithuania is actually ranked very high. It's 11th globally for ease of doing business. That's ranking by the World Bank. So we make sure that it is easy to set up and operate businesses here. And, we continue to work on the business environment, general business environment, to ensure that, any challenges that, businesses sometimes bring to us are being addressed. So, it's working with migration and perhaps bringing skilled workers from non-EU countries, whether it's, bank account, challenges for fintechs and how that can be addressed, So there's a lot of effort that goes to ensuring that we continuously work on improvement of the business environment. I would also need to mention talent in Lithuania, the talent pool, which is it's 85% of young professionals are fluent in English. More than half of the population are fluent in 2 foreign languages. So we're very well posed to actually work internationally and serve customers across the globe. With IT talent pool, with the talent pool that's required for fintechs, AML specialists, compliance specialists, we already have a really thriving and growing ecosystem that's developing those talents. And we see a huge number of young people that are choosing to go into those professions. So again, we see that, the ecosystem grows, the talent pool also continues to grow, and that's sort of creating the benefits for companies as well, as they try to find location that would support their scaling plans. Of course, the infrastructure we use, in tech, we use infrastructure in sort of broader sense, but, we of course need to mention, the digital connectivity, the cybersecurity, again, on this sort of country level, the critical infrastructure is really world-class. And the government has invested a lot to ensure that it is very robust, and the internet speed is one of the fastest, again, globally. So a lot of simple things when you think about it, but they mean actually they may be critical for companies that choose where to operate their technology company from.
Yeah. Now, with that in mind, operating a company across borders, attracting new talent is so important. And Vytautas, if I ask you then, looking at crowdfunding and as well the Lithuanian example, am I correct in thinking that you guys are helping operate UK companies effectively get access to this new European regulation and crowdfunding in Europe?
Yes, definitely, and we see this trend that crowdfunding companies from UK arriving to Lithuania, talking with the crowdfunding association, also has discussions with the regulator supervisor about their plans to move forward, because after Brexit, of course, they have some challenges, and from the one side they have the huge market. So then they don't want to adopt a lot and to amend a lot to what they do right now in UK. So maybe this is as we said before, the main choice to choose Lithuania, because as Lithuania copied a lot of provisions from the UK law, UK crowdfunding law, and Lithuania, we really well understand and know what are the rules of European regime. So maybe that's why they are choosing, and they are coming to Lithuania and considering this as the headquarters for crowdfunding in Europe.
That's absolutely incredible, and I think hearing that, and just how Gintare was also talking about how easy it is to set up a business, being able to know that everything's going to be sorted out from a regulatory point of view, everything's going to be easy to set up after the headache that you're bringing up about Brexit. And all those challenges, to know that there's this regulator in this country that is opening arms up and making everything easy, I think is going to be so incredible going forward. But guys, I think that's all we have time for. We've got to wrap up. But thank you, all three of you, for your insights. It's going to be such an exciting time. Crowdfunding is, in its nature, so fascinating, and to hear an entire nation opening up and making it faster and easier. It's just going to be absolutely brilliant. So thank you to all three of you, and also to our viewers. You can catch the rest of the series and much more over at ffnews.com, and of course YouTube and LinkedIn, where I'll see you in the comments. So to Vytautas, Jovita and Gintare, guys, thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.